Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekend Waypoints, a production of SEC Extra and D1Baseball.com. Joe Healy here to get you ready for Saturday's super regional games around the SEC. We've got 5 of them on deck. Before we get to any of that, I have to let you know that this episode of Weekend Waypoints and every Saturday episode of Weekend Waypoints is brought to you by Plains Coffee Company, a husband and wife team brewing coffee beans in the heart of SEC country. Doesn't get any more local small business than that. You can get 10% off your order by using the code BASEBALL at plainscoffee.com. Also, free shipping in the U.S. on any order, and they do not start roasting your coffee beans until you order it, so they're as fresh as possible when they arrive on your doorstep, not sitting on a shelf for God knows how long. So a lot of good news there with Plains Coffee Company. Go to plainscoffee.com. Use code BASEBALL for 10% off your order of coffee beans or tea. Some tea options if you're not a coffee drinker. Support the people who support us, and that includes Plains Coffee Company. All right, let's start by recapping the one game we had yesterday. Kind of funny how we've got one SEC team on this side of the bracket and 4 on this side. But I guess that's what happens when your hosts are all national seeds. That's kind of, you get that. I guess you get that imbalance. But I guess it's not even. Anyway, whatever. Don't linger on that because that might not. The balance of the bracket, I guess, makes it to where that wouldn't matter. But regardless, they're all on one side. So Tennessee wins at 11-6 over Evansville yesterday. And Evansville was game, right? They put up more of a fight than I thought. If you watched my show yesterday, I said I think that there's a chance that Evansville throws an early punch here because they're a pretty good offensive team. They get the ball in the air, they can hit the ball out, and they're going to be ready to go. Like, this is a big opportunity for them, obviously, and I think you saw that. Right. But the punch wasn't a jab. It was a haymaker. They got an early home run to give them a lead. They fought back after falling behind again. Evansville survived an early barrage of home runs from Tennessee. Ultimately, though, Tennessee just too much. They had enough arms to slow down the Evansville lineup. The Evansville arms just couldn't do quite enough. Hunter Inslee with a late home run to really stretch the lead there for the 11-6 win. Tennessee's next game is today, here in about 45 minutes or so, against Evansville. Tennessee could clinch a spot in the College World Series about 24 hours after they started Super Regionals because of the early start time. That's an 11 a.m. Eastern start time there. Going to see Donovan Schultz for Evansville against Drew Beam for Tennessee. Donovan Schultz has been solid this year, but he's not as good as Deverman, the pitcher that Tennessee saw yesterday. So, again, nothing has changed there. You like the matchup from Tennessee's standpoint. And, for Tennessee, there's probably no one you'd rather have on the mound in a super regional clinching game, potential simple regional clinching game, than Drew Beam, just given everything he's done in the program, his moxie, all that stuff, QB1, all that stuff they talk about with him. He's the right guy for that job. So, sets up well for Tennessee, but we'll see. You got to play the game, you got to earn it, and that will happen today. All right, let's get to the 4 games starting Super Regionals today. The first one on deck is NC State at Georgia. That's 12 p.m. Eastern time. It is, Sam Highfill on the mound for NC State against Colton Smith. Sam Highfill, if you're just a college baseball fan in general, you may remember he was on that College World Series team for NC State back in 2021. He outdueled Jack Leiter to open the College World Series. NC State stay in the College World Series anyway. Started NC State on that path to where they went 2-0. They were, headed towards maybe a regional, the CWS finals, but got sent home due to COVID. So he's got that big game experience. Now, he's dealt with a lot of injuries since then, and so his velo hasn't totally come all the way back, but he's put together a solid season for NC State, so he's going to be a tough customer just from an experience standpoint, and his stuff is still good enough. It's a low 90s fastball. He's got multiple secondary pitches, below average whiff on everything, though, so he's not going to be a guy that's going to pile up a ton of strikeouts, so a lot of opportunities for Georgia to put the ball in play, and obviously at Foley Field, you put the ball in play, things can happen. So, again, so you like Georgia's chances to do some things here, but you can't discount the experience factor for NC State with Sam Highfill on the mound. And also, it's a good offense for NC State. If Colton Smith is not throwing a ton of strikes or like last week getting maybe squeezed a little bit at the plate, NC State's offense is good enough. They'll take their walks, and NC State's offense is good enough to take advantage. So, Colton Smith is going to have to be on his game as well. Unlike the Tennessee series where, hey, Tennessee, as long as they show up probably with, a B-, they're going to be all right. This is one where Georgia's going to have to show up and play their game to win this series. I think this one's, to me, this is the narrowest margin of a super regional in terms of where I think these teams are. So I'm excited to watch as much of it as I can. Shotgun Spratling will be at that one. So Georgia fans, make sure you're following him and following his work. He'll be there this weekend. At Texas A&M, that's R.J. Gordon for Oregon against Ryan Prager for Texas A&M. R.J. Gordon's got real stuff. Fastball up to 97. He's got 5 pitches, so that's fastball, changeup, 2 breaking balls, and a cutter. Not a ton of whiff given how good the stuff is. More of a guy who's going to get some contact. Now it's some whiff. It's not total, pitch to contact and work the corners kind of guy. It's some whiff, but it's real stuff. So this is a game where A&M, if you're looking for them to get off to like some quick offense start, maybe because the lineup is that good, but it also wouldn't be a shock if this is a game that it takes a while for A&M to get settled into it. So should be a fun matchup there with R.J. Gordon and Ryan Prager on the mound. A 2 p.m. Eastern start, I believe, on that one. Have the let me pull up the scoreboard here so I can get the start times on these exactly right. 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. So that's going to be 1 p.m. in College Station. That's obviously, we talked about the heat. We saw yesterday now, with UConn and Florida State. Now, I think that had less to do with the heat and more to do with the fact that FSU was just feeling it yesterday. But Northern team going down south to play on a field that felt like about 100 degrees, that's a tough thing. Oregon will have to deal with that at Texas A&M. All right, Florida and Clemson. That is also a 2 p.m. Eastern start. That is where I will be. Kendall Rogers, of course, will be at Texas A&M for that one. Florida at Clemson, that's where I will be. That's a 2 p.m. Eastern start. Liam Peterson on the mound for Florida, who, you might have been shocked if I'd have told you this 6 weeks ago, but, Liam Peterson is their steadiest starter right now. When you consider that, Caglione just has his off days, and then finding third guy has been a little bit of a struggle for the Gators. So they're going to roll Liam Peterson out there. And honestly, I feel pretty confident about it. Clemson is a good offensive team. They play in an offensive ballpark, so it's not going to be easy. But I sure as heck like Liam Peterson chance to do something there than I did, again, 6 weeks ago. He's going to be opposed by Tristan Smith, a left-hander for Clemson. Fastball up to 96. Slider and changeup he uses about equally. Also gets about equal whiff on them. They're both about, low 40% in terms of whiff rate. That's above average for both of those pitches. And that's big because that gives you the ability to pitch to righties and lefties effectively and put them away, right? As a lefty, you can use the changeup against righties, the slider against lefties as a put-away pitch. So that's big. He's not the most efficient starting pitcher sometimes, so that's the thing for Florida. You can get him out of the game because it's just not his natural disposition to be efficient on the mound. So we'll see how that plays out. Should be a fun series. I'm really looking forward to being at this one. Obviously, lots of storylines. Clemson trying to get to Omaha for the first time in a while. There's the whole, Bakich and Kevin O'Sullivan were assistants together under Jack Leggett at Clemson, along with Tim Corbin. So there's that. So just a lot of stuff there for that game. So looking forward to that one. Excuse me. Oregon State at Kentucky, the last one of the day in terms of SEC games anyway. That one is set for 6 p.m. Eastern. So that'll be a 3 o'clock start in the Pacific Northwest. TBA versus TBA officially. However, I would be surprised if we see anyone but Aiden May for Oregon State. He's been their ace. He's really good, man. Like, don't know what else to tell you. Throws a slider more than his fastball, but his fastball is up to 98. Big time whiff on the slider and the changeup. So that is, that's going to be a tough customer. Just there's no two ways about it. They've got other good pitchers to go the rest of the weekend, but this is where Oregon State feels like, hey, if we're going to get this series on the road, we've got to win the Aiden May start. And I'm assuming that's today. Again, I haven't seen anything official yet, but I'd be surprised if we see anybody but Aiden May. Similar if you're Kentucky, I'd guess Trey Pooser, but they used Nyman to start the weekend last weekend. Do they run that back? Knowing that they're probably going to want to start Nyman at some point if the series goes 3, or do you go Pooser and Moore and use your 2 best guys first 2 games and try to get this over in 2 games? Interesting debate there. So I'd believe a number of things for Kentucky, but I'd be surprised with anybody but Aiden May for Oregon State. That series obviously should be a lot of fun. Let's go over to the comments here. We got a gig 'em from Ace Man on YouTube. Indeed. Big game against Oregon today. Billy Mobley, go Dogs. Ace Man on YouTube. Ryan Prager, Dan, it feels like 105 in the shade. Let's roll. Look, as a Houstonian, I am very familiar with the 105 in the shade type of days this time of year. Jason Armstrong on YouTube, always coming strong. If you're wandering through life apathetically with very little that excites you, there's one solution: LSU baseball and UNC baseball. Gosh, yeah, I mean, NC State, they eliminate LSU in thrilling fashion. And then yesterday, another walk-off win, this one over West Virginia. And poor West Virginia, man, a lot of things went their way in that game. I don't know how many of y'all watched it, but, they have this little lefty, West Virginia does, Derek Clark, whose stuff is just but the dude's a grinder. He's thrown 4 complete games this year, went out for the 9th with like 130 some odd pitches and was just going to try to battle his way to it and couldn't get it done. Tying home run on the first pitch of the inning. And then they go to the bullpen, but that didn't work. And Vance Honeycutt walks it off for North Carolina. Certainly struggling with pitching to Vance Honeycutt, certainly something that LSU baseball fans can relate to because they had to deal with that last weekend. Morning Joe from North Houston, as always. See, you have your super shirt ready to go. Yeah, I've got the florals going today. It's super regionals. You got to bring the heat. That's kind of the way I live. And also we're trying out some shirts for Omaha. We're going to stress test some of these shirts. I'm a sweaty guy. That's just the way it is. And if these shirts don't do well in the warm, then they're probably not going to go to Omaha with me because it's a lot of walking outside in Omaha. Press box is air conditioned and sealed though, so like there is that. But I don't want to arrive at the ball game kind of flop sweating all over the place. Nicholas Doherty, how do you think Kentucky pitches to Bazana, especially with people on base? I would say they largely don't pitch to Bazana. Now, with people on base, that's a different deal because you can't always put him on if you've got traffic. But in low leverage situations, I don't think they do pitch to him based on the way they pitched. Charlie Condon and Jack Caglione, they were among the more careful teams with those 2 guys this season in terms of intentional walks. Just not really giving in, very few fastballs. They were as careful as anybody that I can remember. And so I would be surprised if they give Bazana a lot to hit. No, the trouble is it's pretty deep Oregon State lineup. I mean, it's like dealing with Condon and then the rest of the Georgia lineup. It is on par with that. But the good news about Kentucky is that their pitchers tend to be what I like to call kitchen sink pitchers, which is just like throwing everything at you, right? It's not like, you got some guys who are just, fastball slider, but they've got guys who do a lot of different things. So Mason Moore, of course, with a heavy sink, I think that's helpful. They've got different looks in the bullpen for late in the game. They've got guys who can elevate, Dom Nyman. The thing about him is that even with a fastball that doesn't have premium velocity, he can elevate that thing and beat batters, and you got to be careful with that. But so I would expect them to be extremely careful, if not exceedingly so. But then the rest of the time, it's just kind of like a good luck situation, I think. Jordan says, just hoping for some great games today. No football scores. I agree. And then he asked, which SEC team are you most concerned about in today's matchups? Well, I'm looking at them. I think it's probably Kentucky given Aiden May, assuming Aiden May pitches. He's just good. And I've talked to some people this week about that matchup, and they always started with Aiden May's got a chance to equalize there. and deal with Kentucky's lineup and set Kentucky up to where they're really going to have to pitch it to win this game. And last weekend, Kentucky got really good starts 2 out of 3 days, and that's how they went 3-0 in a regional. But we understand that they've been a little bit. They've been a little bit of it's been a little bit of a struggle down the stretch on the mound for Kentucky, and so the Oregon State's lineup is good enough to make them pay for that. And if you are trying to hit Aiden May on the mound, you understand you might have to try to win a game with 3 runs or less, right? So that worries me a little bit from a Kentucky standpoint. And then I don't want to make too much of this, but if you're Kentucky and you lose this opener, which we don't know that they will, but I'm just saying, then you've got that wonky 9 p.m. local start coming tomorrow. And I don't know how much body clock matters when you're on your 3rd or 4th day being somewhere. I guess 3rd in that case. But on Pacific time, that 9 p.m. local start is 6. So will Oregon State just be a little bit fresher based on that? I don't know. I'm not saying that I know that. I'm just wondering. But that 9 p.m. start tomorrow does kind of throw a wrench into things, especially if you've got your backs against the wall. So big one today in Lexington. Absolutely no doubt about that. Ace has just arrived at Bluebell Park. Already a decent line, despite still 3.5 hours till first pitch. Ace, I hope you have water on you and sunblock if you're in direct sunlight, because I'm assuming the gates are opening, an hour and a half before first pitch. So you've got 2 hours out there. Make sure you're hydrating. Make sure you are sunblocking. I commend you for being out there that early, but make sure you're taking care of yourself, because woof, that is a hot day to be doing that. So I salute you, sir, and hope you're taking care of yourself. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints. A little bit abbreviated today because the game starts so early. I've got to get to the ballpark. Apparently, Ace and a bunch of others got to get to Bluebell Park early. So we're going to leave it right there. I appreciate you watching. Support our sponsor, Plains Coffee Company, plainscoffee.com. Use code BASEBALL. Jeremy, I see your question. Maybe it's something I'll tackle a little more in depth tomorrow. He has asked about Arkansas bounce back next year. It's Arkansas, so I'm going to bet they're going to bounce back just fine. But I'll make a note. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow morning. But for now, that'll do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints. Enjoy the baseball today, everyone. Support Plains Coffee Company. Use code BASEBALL for 10% off of your order with free shipping. I will talk to y'all tomorrow morning.